There is a room at Ohio University that has been sealed for decades. Not locked, not renovated, not repurposed, sealed. Walls built over the door, plaster poured over the frame. The university does not advertise this. They do not explain it. They do not answer questions about it, because some questions, once answered, change the person who asked them. Room 428, Wilson Hall, 4th floor. A room that still exists behind those walls. A room that still has furniture inside. A desk, a bed, a window. And according to people who have pressed their ear against that sealed wall late at night, the sound of someone still moving around inside. Like a girl who never found her way out. Like a voice still searching for a language anyone can understand. Ohio University sits in Athens, Ohio. Founded in 1804, the oldest university in the state. Beautiful red brick buildings, tree-lined pathways, a campus that looks, in every photograph, exactly like what a university should look like. Peaceful, academic, safe. But Athens, Ohio is not what it looks like in photographs. Athens has been listed among the most haunted places in the entire United States. Not once, repeatedly. By multiple independent researchers, by paranormal investigators, by historians who do not believe in the supernatural, but cannot explain what they have documented. And the reason is not just one thing. It is everything. Everything at once. Ohio University was built on land that had been sacred to Native American tribes for centuries, burial grounds, sacred ceremonial sites, ground that was never meant to have buildings placed upon it. But that is not all. Before the university expanded into its current form, the land housed a psychiatric asylum, a place where in the 1800s and early 1900s, patients were not traded so much as contained. Where suffering was not healed so much as hidden, where people went in and rarely came out the same. But even that is not all. Look at a map of Athens, Ohio. Look carefully at the cemeteries surrounding the city. There are 5 of them, and if you draw a straight line connecting each one, they form a perfect pentagram, with Ohio University sitting at the exact center. This is not a theory. This is geography. And at the center of that center, the most active, the most documented, the most impossible to explain location on the entire campus is Wilson Hall, room 428, 4th floor, the room they sealed and never reopened. Characters in the video: Maya Chen, a junior journalism student writing her thesis on campus urban legends; Dr. Robert Hale, a university historian who has worked at Ohio University for 30 years; Priya Nair, Maya's roommate and closest friend, a psychology student; Thomas Reed, a senior student who claims his grandfather was a maintenance worker in Wilson Hall in the 1970s. Maya Chen did not choose room 428. Room 428 chose her. It started the way most things start in journalism, with a throwaway comment. A professor mentioned Ohio University's haunted reputation in passing during a lecture on investigative research methods. He moved on immediately. The rest of the class moved on with him. Maya did not. She stayed behind after class, asked one question. What was the real event behind the legend? The professor had looked at her for a long moment, then said something she would think about for weeks afterward. It depends on who you ask, and whether you're prepared for what they tell you. Maya was a journalist. She was always prepared. She went back to her dorm that night and started researching. What she found in the first hour was easy enough. The stories were everywhere. Room 428 in Wilson Hall. A female student in the 1970s, strange behavior that began gradually and escalated quickly. Speaking in a language no one recognized, writing symbols on the walls of her room, standing at her window for hours at night, completely still, staring at nothing, and then one night, falling from the 4th floor. The official record listed it as an accident or perhaps a tragedy. The details were deliberately vague. After her death, students on the 4th floor of Wilson Hall began reporting experiences they could not explain. Sounds from the empty room, a voice, the smell of something that had no source, a feeling universally described the same way by every person who reported it, of being watched from inside a room with no occupant. The university sealed the room, not temporarily, permanently. It has never been reopened. That was where the public record ended. Maya knew that was where her real investigation needed to begin. Thomas Reed did not want to talk about it. He made that clear immediately when Maya approached him in the campus library. Arms crossed, eyes already calculating how quickly he could end the conversation. "I've heard you've been asking questions about Wilson Hall," Maya said. "People talk too much," Thomas replied. "Your grandfather worked there in the 70s. A long pause. "He was a maintenance worker," Thomas finally said. "He cleaned the building, fixed things. That was all." "Did he ever talk about the girl in room 428? Thomas looked down at the table. And Maya understood in that moment that he had not just heard stories, he had inherited them. The way some families inherit trauma, quietly, completely, across generations. He spoke slowly, carefully, like a person choosing which parts of a heavy thing to carry into a room. "My grandfather started working in Wilson Hall in 1971. He liked the job, said the building felt alive in a way he enjoyed. Students everywhere, energy. She moved in during the fall of 1974. He never told me her name. I don't think he knew it, or if he did, he stopped saying it at some point. At first, he noticed small things. Her light was always on late, later than anyone else on the floor. He thought she was just a hard worker, dedicated student. Then, in October, he was doing his evening round, and he heard something from her room. Thomas stopped. Maya waited. He said it was like someone talking, but the words weren't words. He couldn't identify the language. He thought maybe it was a foreign student speaking on the phone in her native language. He moved on. But it kept happening. Every night, same time, same room. He started to notice she wasn't using a phone. There was no phone pressed to her ear when he caught glimpses through the window in her door. She was just talking to the room. By November, my grandfather said she looked different, thinner, distracted during the day. In the evenings, she was alert, too alert, like something had her full attention and the rest of the world had gone completely out of focus. He asked her once if she was all right. She looked at him for a long time without answering. Then she said, and these are his exact words, Maya, because he repeated them to me so many times I have them memorized. She said, "It keeps showing me things I don't have words for yet." The library was very quiet around them. What happened after that? Thomas exhaled. He requested a transfer to a different building 2 weeks later. His supervisor asked why. He said he didn't feel comfortable on the 4th floor anymore. His supervisor laughed at him. He transferred anyway. And 3 weeks after he left, Thomas picked up his bag. She fell. He stood to leave, then turned back once. My grandfather lived to 81 years old. Sharp mind his whole life, never forgot anything except her name. He said that no matter how hard he tried, every time he reached for it, it wasn't there, like something had taken it, like something had needed it more than he did. Dr. Robert Hale had worked at Ohio University for 30 years. He knew everything about the institution's history, the proud parts and the buried parts. When Maya sat across from him in his cluttered office, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and decades of accumulated research, she expected careful, measured academic language. Instead,
He closed his office door, sat down, and said, "I've been waiting for someone to ask the right questions for a very long time." He began with the land. Before Ohio University, before the asylum, before any of it, the land had been inhabited and considered sacred by the Adena people for over 2,000 years. Burial mounds, ceremonial sites, ground that carried specific cultural and spiritual significance. When the land was taken and built upon, Dr. Hale said carefully, the mounds were not all removed. Some were simply built over, incorporated into the landscape without acknowledgement. Are there mounds under the campus? There are mounds under parts of the campus, yes. Maya wrote this down. Then he talked about the asylum. The Southeastern Ohio Mental Health Center had operated on land adjacent to what would become the expanded university campus. The practices of that era were, he paused, choosing words, aggressive. Patients were subjected to procedures that today would be considered deeply unethical. Many died there. Many were buried on the property in unmarked graves. Unmarked graves on university land? Former university land, yes. The exact locations are not fully documented. Maya looked up from her notes. And the pentagram of cemeteries. Dr. Hale nodded slowly. 5 cemeteries, Westview, Hanning, Higgins, Zion, Cuckler. Draw lines between them on a map. The geometry is, he paused again, undeniable. And Wilson Hall sits at the center? Wilson Hall sits at the center. A silence. Then Maya asked the question she had been building toward. What do you know about the girl in room 428? Dr. Hale was quiet for a very long time.
Long enough that Maya started to think he wasn't going to answer. Then, I know that she was an exceptional student, linguistics major, 3rd year, top of her program. Linguistics, yes, which makes certain aspects of what was reported particularly, he searched for the word, complicated. The language no one recognized. She was a linguistics student, Maya. She knew 12 languages, functionally, not theoretically. 12 languages by her 3rd year. The weight of this settled into the room. So when people reported her speaking in an unrecognized language, they were not reporting a disturbed girl babbling incoherently, Dr. Hale said quietly. They were reporting a girl who knew 12 languages speaking in a 13th that no one on earth could identify. Maya set her pen down. What was she saying? No one could record it. No one could transcribe it. The sounds were, according to everyone who heard them, almost recognizable, like a language you feel you should know, like something your brain almost grasps and then loses. The symbols on the wall, they were linguistic symbols? They appeared to be an attempt at written transcription of what she was hearing, of what she was being shown. He said that last word carefully. She told my grandfather she was being shown things she didn't have words for yet. Dr. Hale looked at her sharply. You spoke to Thomas Reed. Yes. A long exhale. She wrote in her journal, which was found in the room after her death and has been held in university archives since, that something in the room was communicating with her, not in a language, in a space beneath language, in something that predated language. And she was trying to translate it? She was trying to give it words, yes. Did she succeed? Dr. Hale looked at Maya for a long moment. The last entry in her journal was 17 pages long. 17 pages! Written in a single night, the night before she fell. What did it say? It was entirely in the unidentified language. Every word? Every single word, 17 pages, written in a script that has never been matched to any known linguistic system on Earth by a girl who knew 12 languages and understood linguistic systems better than most people who dedicate their entire careers to the field. The office felt smaller than it had when Maya walked in. Where is the journal now? Dr. Hale opened his desk drawer and placed it on the desk between them. Maya stared at it. Small brown leather cover, worn edges, like any student journal from the 1970s. "You've had this in your desk?" "I have been the unofficial keeper of it for 11 years. The previous keeper was a colleague who retired. She passed it to me with one instruction." "What instruction?" "Don't read the last 17 pages alone." Maya looked at him. "Did you follow that instruction?" A pause that lasted just a second too long. "I followed it the first time," he said. Maya opened the journal carefully. The early entries were normal. The handwriting of a smart, engaged, enthusiastic student, notes about linguistics classes, observations about language patterns, excitement about a research project. Then, a shift. Around mid-October, the entries became shorter, more fragmented. "The building has a sound I haven't been able to identify, not mechanical, almost vocal. I've been trying to phonetically transcribe it, but the sounds don't map onto any phonetic alphabet I know." 2 days later, "I've started hearing it in my sleep, not disturbing, actually almost comforting, like being spoken to by something very old that has been waiting a long time to be heard." A week later, "It's not the building, it's the room, specifically the room. When I leave, it stops. When I return, it continues exactly where it left off, like it has been waiting. Then, I think it's trying to show me something, not tell me. Show me. There's a difference. Language tells. What this is doing goes underneath telling, directly into something that exists before words do." Then the entries became harder to read, the handwriting changing, not deteriorating, transforming, becoming something more precise and more strange simultaneously. And then, the final entry, 17 pages. Maya turned to them slowly. The script was unlike anything she had seen. Not chaotic, not the writing of a disturbed mind. Precise, consistent, structured, a real system, a real language, written with the confidence of someone transcribing something they could clearly hear. Maya stared at the symbols and felt something she could not explain and would spend months afterward trying to. For just a moment, just a single moment, she almost understood it. Not the way you understand words, the way you understand a feeling, the way grief feels the same in every language, the way certain music reaches something in you that has no name. She felt the meaning of it, somewhere beneath her ability to articulate it. And then it was gone. She closed the journal. Her hands were completely steady. Her mind was somewhere far away. "She wasn't losing her mind," Maya said quietly. "No," Dr. Hale agreed. "She was finding something." "Yes. And it took her." Dr. Hale was quiet for a long time. "I think," he said finally, "that she went willingly." Priya thought it was a terrible idea. She said so 4 times on the walk to Wilson Hall. "Journalism thesis. I need to see the space." "You need to see a sealed wall. That's when you need to see. Plaster. That's it." "I need to stand where it happened." "Priya! Maya!" They went. Wilson Hall at night was not like Wilson Hall in the day. The students still in their rooms, the lights in the windows, none of it made the building feel inhabited in the way that mattered. The 4th floor corridor was quiet, ordinary. Dorm room doors, a bulletin board, a water fountain. Normal. Until the end of the corridor, where the wall was. Not a door, a wall. Same color as the rest of the corridor, same texture. But if you knew what you were looking for, if you counted the doors and measured the space between them, you could see where the room was. You could see the precise outline of where the door used to be. Filled in, plastered over, painted to match. Maya stood in front of it. Priya stood 2 steps behind her. The corridor was empty, completely silent. Maya placed her hand flat against the wall and heard it. Faint. Faint enough that she second-guessed herself immediately. But Priya grabbed her arm at the same moment. "Tell me you didn't just hear that," Priya whispered. They had both heard it. From behind the wall. A sound. Not mechanical, not a pipe or a settling building. A sound that was almost vocal, almost a pattern, almost a language, almost something you felt you should recognize, almost something your brain reached for and couldn't quite hold. Maya pressed closer, and in the silence that followed, in the space between one breath and the next, she heard something else, softer, closer, like someone on the other side of the wall pressing their ear to the plaster at the exact same moment, like someone who had been waiting in that room for decades for someone to finally come close enough to hear, like a voice that had found its language at last and had so much left to say. Maya went home and wrote for 6 hours straight. Everything Dr. Hale had told her, everything Thomas had said, everything she had found in the journal, everything she had heard through the wall. She wrote it all down, every detail, every connection, every layer of history beneath the history beneath the history. At 3 a.m., she stopped, reread everything from the beginning, and realized something was wrong. Not with the facts, with the writing itself. She scrolled back to the beginning of the document. The first 3 hours of writing were exactly as she remembered, clear, structured, journalistic. But somewhere around the 3rd hour, the writing changed. She didn't remember it changing, but there it was. The sentences becoming longer, more complex, reaching for something. And then, in the final 40 minutes of writing, symbols interspersed between the English words, then replacing them. She stared at the screen. She did not remember writing symbols. She did not know what they meant, but they were consistent, structured, the same symbols repeating in patterns that suggested grammar, syntax, meaning. She recognized them from the journal, the final 17 pages, the language that had no name. She was shaking now. She selected all the text and stared at the word count. 6,847 words. She had written 6,847 words in 6 hours. She remembered writing maybe half of that. She did not submit the thesis. She saved the document, closed her laptop, sat in the dark of her dorm room for a very long time. And somewhere in the dark, she thought about the linguistics student, about what Dr. Hale had said. She went willingly. About what Thomas's grandfather had said. It keeps showing me things I don't have words for yet. And Maya thought, not with fear, not exactly, but with the particular vertigo of someone standing at the edge of something enormous. She thought, what if she found them? What if that's what those 17 pages are? The words, finally, after so long. The words. The next morning, Maya opened her laptop. The document was open. She had closed it. She was certain she had closed it. But it was open. And it was longer. She had written 6,847 words. The document now contained 9,200. The new words were at the end, all in the symbols. Page after page of them, written in the night while she slept, or, well, something used her hands while she slept. She read them the way you read something in a language you don't speak, looking for patterns, for repetition, for the ghost of meaning in the architecture of the symbols. And there, in the final paragraph, 3 symbols she recognized, not from the journal, from somewhere older than the journal, from somewhere in herself. She almost knew what they meant. She reached for the meaning the way you reach for a word on the tip of your tongue. Closer, closer. And then her phone rang. Priya's name on the screen. She answered. Maya? Priya said. Her voice was strange, careful. "What?" "Last night, at Wilson Hall, when we were standing at the wall." "Yes?" "I recorded it on my phone, the sound we heard through the wall." "Okay." "I listened back to it this morning." A pause. "It's not just sound, Maya. On the recording, you can hear it more clearly." "What does it sound like?" Another pause. Longer. "It sounds like someone's saying your name." Maya looked at the symbols on her screen, at the three she almost understood, at the meaning she could almost hold. She thought about the linguistic student, about the journal, about 17 pages written in a single night, about a room that had been sealed for decades, about something that had been waiting inside it. Patient, ancient, with so much left to say, and so few people willing to learn the language. Maya looked at the symbols, and this time, she didn't look away. Ohio University sealed room 428 to keep something in. But the thing about language, the thing about any language, is that walls have never been able to stop it. Words find a way. They always find a way. And some languages have been waiting so long to be understood that when they finally find someone willing to listen, they never let them go.